Hello, Michael here with Private Pook Games, here with a review of Sally Face Strange Nightmares, the Deluxe Edition. This is a board game adaptation of the very popular indie video game Sally Face. It was designed by Steve Gabry, sorry if I'm saying that right, if I'm saying that incorrectly, Steve. So it was designed by someone who is obviously well-versed in their own game. And I'm going to talk today about who I think will really like this game, who might bounce off of it, and what I thought of it. To begin with, I want to address one elephant in the room, and that is something to do with a recent update on the Kickstarter page. And I want to say it right out at the beginning because once I've said it, I'm kind of going to ignore that for the purposes of the rest of the review. I want to say it up front, and then I'm going to review the game while kind of passing this aside, and that is the issue of errata. Update number 68 in Sally Face Strange Nightmares Kickstarter addresses the fact that players who've been receiving their pledges over the last month or so have noted there is a fair amount of errata. From what I can tell, it seems that Maestro Games is taking care of this. They're collecting information on it. Their plan is to release a printable PDF with all of the errata, and then they are saying that eventually they will mail out updated components for the mistakes. So, obviously right now, this is early March 2025. As of right now, if you pick this game up, you are going to have errata that you should address. So I want to say right up front, check the Kickstarter page. Just Google Kickstarter for Sally Face Strange Nightmares. Look at update number 68, and it's a very short list of just some errata that has been found. I feel like if you look at that before you start the game, you're going to drastically improve your onboarding. Now that I've said that, however, I'm kind of going to push that to the side because I'm going to operate under the idea that they are going to take care of this. And if you're watching this 6 months from now, it's probably no longer going to be an issue. So I couldn't not mention it because it is a significant issue, and we'll talk about how. At the same time, I don't think it's going to be a permanent issue. So now that that's done, we're going to move past the errata. We're going to talk about this game. So to begin with, I'm coming from a place where I have played Sally Face on the PC. I actually really enjoyed it on my Steam Deck. If thematically some of the art in this appeals to you, if the narrative ideas in it appeal to you, you should definitely check out the game. The board game is clearly a pretty faithful and interesting way of taking that video game and putting it in board game form so you can interact with the components and have things that are very thematically appropriate. That is done with certain levels of success and certain things that I thought, I'm not going to say could have been better, but I'll say what my ifs, ands, or buts are about it. But to begin with, I want to say, Too Long Didn't Read. If you are a fan of the video game and you want more of this world, this is a great way to get it. If you've never played the video game, we're going to talk about why you might want to go to the video game first. And then if you really enjoy that, come and try out this game. But how does it work first? So first, you get to be characters from the game. I've tested it with a couple different ones. Right here you can see this is Ash Campbell, a popular character from it. This is Todd Morrison. You can be Sally Face, the main character. Sally Face being a kid who has a prosthetic mask. The reasons for that, I don't want to spoil. That's something that you should explore the story for. You're in your apartment building. So you can see it's made up of 5 different floors, placed one on top of the other. I can give you a few examples right here. The art on it's very cool. It's very appropriate. You can see if you flip it over, this isn't really important gameplay-wise, but it is kind of important for setting the theme that this is an apartment where something is clearly wrong. As you're going through the game, what happens is you start with story cards. This is the very first story of 4. It's called Another Dead Body. So clearly right now we're dealing with mature themes. If you are thinking of this for someone who doesn't want mature themes, might not be the way you'd want to go. And I'm not going to show a bunch of these because I don't want to spoil it, but essentially these work as you would think. You flip them over, you read the story, you follow basically whatever prompts it gives you, and then at some point in time it's going to give you a quote-unquote mystery. You're going to place that mystery somewhere you're in your apartment building. This one, police tape, is room 408, so I am going, or sorry, 403, so I'm going to put it on the 4th floor. And now that mystery is something that I need to solve to move forward in the game. You'll see that every mystery comes with certain icons, and that's where your turn comes into play. When you have a turn, you either draw a new mystery, if you've completed this one, draw one of the standard mysteries and put it on the board and trigger possible negative effects, and then each person rolls 6 basic dice. This is the deluxe edition, so this comes with glow-in-the-dark dice. I haven't tested them to know if they actually work. And then 1 die that is specific for your character. So to begin with, the character you pick does have a little bit of significance because you get a special die for them. You roll them, and you basically use those symbols to try and solve mysteries. Now, right away, this might seem incredibly random. To an extent, it is. However, it does have sort of a Yahtzee element to it where you can look at your dice rolls, pick ones that are good, and you get a total of 3 rolls total. So you can re-roll ones that you don't like. There are some symbols that have this big mean person on here, and if you roll a total of 3 of them, that triggers your curse card. Every character has a curse. So you can't just roll without consequence. That said, you get 3 chances, and that really does a good job of mitigating some of the bad luck you might have. So that part of it flows really well. I want to be really clear that with the dice rolling, it takes a little bit to get down how it works, how you apply it to mysteries, what happens when a mystery is drawn at the beginning of your turn. But once you get it down, it rolls very well. Now, beyond that, there are things like item cards you can trigger. There are things like each floor has, for each chapter, has a certain ability you can trigger. And while you're doing all of that, you are trying your very best not to let your corruption, I mean, to me it's like a Doom track, but I guess it's a corruption track, not let it progress too far along. If it gets all the way to the end, then you fail your chapter. You got to start again. There are also people who will get in your way. The first one being police officers. For reasons I won't spoil, there are things suspicious about police officers in the Sally Face world. There's, conspiracies here and there. There are also things like ghouls. I can't remember if they call them ghouls or ghosts or spirits, but they'll show up. Certain dice combinations, what dice combinations and abilities you need to make them disappear kind of depend. For instance, for a police officer, you can use any die to make them go away, distract them. For spirits, you need to sacrifice, sanity points, which you don't want to run out of, or you can use a specific die. I can't remember the name of it, but it's kind of like the Elder Sign, I guess, in Arkham games. So there's lots of cool things like that play in. I could go over a lot more mechanics, but I want to jump more. That's stuff that comes in as you play the game really well. The only other thing I'd say about mechanics is that every turn, even if you don't solve your mystery, you are going to draw new basic mysteries, and these ones start populating the board, and every time you draw one, it has the possibility of triggering negative effects from other mysteries that share the same token sign on it. And then what happens eventually is the building starts filling up with all this bad stuff, and you either need to do your core mission to progress the game, or you need to clear out some of the other ones. And each turn you kind of have a choice to say, what's the most effective way to keep proceeding with my main mission, but also realizing that if I don't deal with all these other things, like I've got to take care of this mystery, the police tape one, but there's also tormented spirits on floor 2. I can't just ignore them because bad stuff's going to happen from them. So it becomes a little bit, mysteries kind of become the whack-a-mole. The mysteries, having too many of them on the board, is always going to end up leading to bad stuff. So you got to take care of that while also doing your main things. Thematically, things work really well in this game. If you've played Sally Face, you know that this apartment building is a very, very important location in the game. They have things like the apartment rooms, which you will remember from the game. They have the tree house, which both serves as your place to go and heal, but don't spend too much time or the mysteries will rack up. It also is a place where a crucial character and Sally go to kind of plan out things. All of the player boards are all Gear Boys, which, for those of you who've played the game, know that's the pocket device that Sally plays in it that has some other mini games in it. Gear Boy, it's a mixture of Game Gear and Game Boy. A lot of the items and mysteries are related to things from the game, so this really has a lot of Easter eggs for people who are big fans of the game. Now, what does that all amount to? This amounts to a game that I think is a really good, easy purchase for someone who has played Sally Face, the video game, really loved it, and wants more of that world. For anyone else, I have a hard time recommending this. And here's why. In this game, each of your quests, stories, whatever you want to call them, are very, very closely tied to actual stories and chapters in the game itself. That is really cool if you've played the game and want to see that story represented through these story cards and through this board game experience where you interact with the mechanics a lot more than in the video game. In the video game, it's an adventure game. You're walking around, you find items, you talk to people, you make friends. That's how the game works. It's this game where you play these strong friendships, these characters who kind of become endearing. They care about each other. When you visit people in the apartment building, you talk to them, and it's, God forbid, people are friendly to each other. You would think that with a game that has dark imagery, you would think everyone in it is evil. Yes, some people are evil, but actually a lot of people in this game and a lot of the characters in the game are really heartwarming. And it actually was one of my favorite things about the game, is realizing that your core group of friends, the characters you play, are legitimately good friends and they have each other's back. And that was really cool to see that be such a crucial piece. Especially when you have characters who are so made to be so unusual looking, unusual acting, and they just accept each other. That was one of my favorite things about the game. It's certainly present here to an extent, but what you have for each of these stories is honestly a really abridged version of them. For instance, Another Dead Body, I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but I will tell you it is almost a carbon copy of one of the chapters early on in Sally Face. The problem is, it's only the very barest of plot points. Now that is really interesting and fascinating for someone who has played the video game and wants to experience it and look for all the clues, all these things that are like Easter eggs. If you have not played the game, to me this is just an inferior way of learning that story for the first time. So I would highly recommend that your first exposure to this story should not be this board game. It should be the video game where it is told the way that I think it's intended to be told. If you love that and you want to see it in another form, go for it. Take on this board game, enjoy it. It's a lovely thing, whether you're just a collector who wants to own things that look good, or you want to try it again and you want to see it from another angle, that's great. But that's where I think this game falls. I enjoyed playing it. If I had not played the game Sally Face, I would have felt a little confused by the stories and adventures, or at least they would have been a little underwhelming. Essentially, it's just these very brief, abridged versions of them. And I did mention about how one of my favorite things in the video game was the friendships of the main characters are embraced, and they're diverse, and they're very cool. You don't really get a sense that any of the characters in the board game truly care about each other that way. That's not a flaw of the board game, I don't think. That's just the nature of how they have to tell these stories so briefly and quickly, and literally on these poker cards, rather than in the context of a bigger storytelling device. That's just one of the sacrifices that has to be made for the story in order to make it fit into this easily accessible board game. So at the end of the day, once again, if you love Sally Face, the video game, and you wanted to experience it another way, this will be a board game I think you'll very much like. The rule book is pretty brief. There are a few things in it that are a little weird, take a little bit of time, but it's not too hard to learn. There is a learn to play video you can scan on the front too if you're not big on reading. But I think this would be really good. If you haven't played Sally Face, the video game, and you're looking at this and thinking thematically this looks really cool, I highly recommend you jump on Steam or whatever your video gaming device is. Try out the game first and then come back to this one. Hope that makes sense. I'm wishing very good luck to the developer of both the board game and the video game on getting Sally Face 2 made. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like what you see, let me know. Like the video, subscribe, and if you played the game, share your thoughts. As always, don't be a troll. If you want to be a troll, go live under a bridge. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.